Have you ever seen a moment like this? A meeting room in America, white lights, a paper coffee cup, laptops open, a meeting schedule stacked like a brick wall. Someone just said something like, "So why didn't you think of this earlier?" The air tightens. Most people lose energy before the day even begins. Not because life is hard, but because their minds are too loud. Today's story is about staying calm when everything around you is chaotic, and about the person who changes the rhythm of the entire room. Not the one who argues best, not the one who talks the most, but the one who sits still, looks straight ahead, takes one breath, and responds 1 second slower than everyone else. There are people like that. They don't win because they are better. They win because they don't let the moment carry them away. Many people still think the workplace rewards speed, quick replies, quick reactions, quick comebacks. But if you work long enough in the American environment, you start to see what truly gets rewarded is steadiness. Steadiness in your voice, steadiness in your decisions, steadiness when someone is trying to make you lose your composure. Because in the workplace, emotions don't disappear. They're simply recorded in a different way. Every time you overreact, you lose a little invisible credit. You lose it when colleagues hesitate to include you in client meetings. You lose it when your manager starts choosing someone else to represent the team. You lose it when you are no longer given the kind of tasks that require trust, the kind that lead to promotion. And the most dangerous part, you may not notice it when it's happening. Everything still looks fine. You still have work. You're still invited to meetings. You're still assigned tasks. It's just that you always stand at the edge of the big decisions. I once witnessed this with someone named Daniel. Daniel was what Americans often call a high performer. He worked fast, worked hard, and never refused responsibility. People liked asking Daniel for help because he can handle it. But Daniel had one issue. He reacted as if everything were personal. A piece of feedback in a meeting sounded like an attack. A line in an email saying, "Can you explain?" felt like suspicion. A Slack message at 6:17 p.m. felt like an invasion of his personal life. Daniel wasn't a bad person. Daniel was just tired. Tired of having to prove he was right. And the more tired he became, the easier he was to ignite. One time, in a project meeting, a director asked a very cold question. "Who owns this, miss?" You know that kind of question, don't you? It doesn't just ask who did it. It asks who is responsible. Daniel was there, and by reflex, he jumped in to explain. He talked continuously. He pulled out the entire history. Who sent what? Who was late? Who didn't respond? Phrases like, "I already said," and "I told them," started appearing. He won the story, but he lost the room. Because after about 90 seconds, you could see people's eyes change. They were no longer listening to understand. They were listening to avoid. The meeting ended. People stood up and said, "Thanks, everyone." Daniel still felt heat in his chest. As he walked into the hallway, his phone buzzed. A Slack message from his boss. "We'll talk tomorrow." Daniel didn't sleep that night. And this is the detail I never forgot. Daniel wasn't upset about the work. He was upset about feeling judged, about the feeling that they don't see how hard I try. And if you've ever worked in a competitive environment, you know how real that feeling is. It makes you want to shout and disappear at the same time. The next morning, Daniel came to work early. He bought a large coffee, as if caffeine could help with something else. At 9:03 a.m., his boss called him into a one-to-one. No yelling, no drama, just one very American, very cold, very honest sentence. People don't feel safe when you're reactive. Daniel went silent. Not the silence of agreement, the silence of being struck. Because safe in the workplace doesn't just mean physical safety. It means the feeling that I can bring you bad news without you exploding. I can give feedback without being attacked. I can work with you without walking on eggshells. And when you're labeled as someone who isn't safe, no matter how good you are, you become limited. Daniel asked, "So what should I do? I don't want to be fake." His boss said, "Don't be fake, be steady." Steady, not soft, not suppressing yourself, but steady, so others know you are not pulled around by every word. That night, Daniel did something he had never done before. He wrote an email, but didn't send it. He opened his laptop at the kitchen table. He wrote exactly what he wanted to say, with all his frustration, all his defensiveness. Then he changed the subject line to "Draft, not sending tonight." He closed the laptop. The next day, he read it again. And suddenly, he saw the person who wrote it sounded like someone speaking from a wound, not from the truth. Daniel started a new habit. Small, but it changed the way he showed up. Before replying to difficult emails, he applied the 10-minute rule. Stand up, get some water, look out the window, let his body cool down before words were sent. In America, everything has a timestamp. Whether you send an email in 30 seconds or 12 minutes, no one thinks you're slow. But they will remember for a long time if you send an emotional email. In meetings, Daniel used one sentence to save himself. "Let me think for a second." It sounds ordinary, but it's a pause button. It buys you time. It pulls you out of instinct. It turns you from someone who reacts into someone who chooses. And something very interesting happened. When Daniel started talking less, people started listening more. Before, Daniel spoke to regain control. Now Daniel spoke to redirect the situation. He began asking, "What's the outcome we want?" instead of "Who's wrong?" He began saying, "I might be missing something. Can you walk me through it?" And strangely, the less defensive he became, the more respected he was. Because the workplace works like this. The person who needs to prove they are strong is often the one who is afraid. The person who is truly steady doesn't rush to prove anything. The benefit of calmness is not only that others like you more, it's that you keep your energy for your own life. Daniel told me that before, he would drive home on the freeway, traffic, horns, red lights, and in his head, he would still be replaying meetings, still preparing arguments for imaginary conflicts. He would arrive home still irritated, still tense, not truly present with his partner. When Daniel learned how to pause at work, he also learned how to clock out for real. That is a kind of freedom many people don't realize they need. The freedom of not being dragged around by work emotions. Then one day, the real test came. A client became angry on a call, a harsh tone, direct criticism, the kind of call where the entire team just wants to disappear from Zoom. Daniel sat there. You can guess his old reflex. He would interrupt, correct every detail, prove the client wrong. But this time, Daniel did something different. He stayed quiet for a moment. Let the client finish. Then he said one very simple sentence. "You're right to be frustrated, Here's what we can do by Friday, and here's what we can't. No long explanations. No blame. No justification. Just clarity. The call cooled down. Afterward, the director sent him a private message. Nice handling. Those 2 words may sound small, but in American workplace culture, that's a stamp. It says, this person can stand in fire without burning. A few months later, when a lead position opened up, Daniel was not the most technically skilled person on the list. But he was the only one everyone trusted not to make the room tense when problems arose. And this is what many people miss. Promotions are not only given to those who do the most. They are given to those who make the environment easier to breathe. If you are someone who often gets angry, overreacts, or constantly feels triggered at work, you don't need to become a cold person. You only need one skill. Pause before you respond. Next time you receive an email at 9 p.m. or a Slack message from your boss saying, "Need a quick update?" or a pointed question in a meeting, don't ask, "How should I respond strongly?" Ask a different question. What is the calm move here? It might be, "I'll get back to you tomorrow morning with options." It might be, "Thanks for flagging. Let me take a look." It might be silence, a note to yourself, and a response after you've thought it through. One pause can save a meeting. One calm reply can save your relationship with your manager. And one habit of calmness can save you from bringing the company home with you every night. Calm people don't win because they are smarter. They win because they don't give away their power. If you are learning how to stay calm in a noisy world, this video is for you. Don't forget to subscribe and follow the channel. We'll meet again in the next stories. Thank you for spending your time listening and allowing me to be with you for the past few minutes. Rest well. Tomorrow is a new day. I wish you peace and happiness.